Hey writers, it's Megan and Ella from All Writers Welcome. Hope you're all doing well. It is cold and misty by me today. It is such crazy summer weather. Yesterday was beautiful and sunny. Today's cold and misty, so it's like a good day to stay inside and write a lot. So the topic we want to tackle today is tips for shy authors and introverts, but these tips work for all authors. And we wanted to do this topic for a couple of reasons. One, we had some people ask, hey, I'm an author, or I'm moving into that point of being an author, or maybe I already have stuff published, and I feel shy. I know I need to promote my books, I know I need to get out there, but it's not in my comfort zone. It is not natural to me to just go up to people, shake their hands, meet them. What can I do? And the great news is there is plenty that you can do, and the even greater news is that those things that work for people who feel out of their comfort zone, going up and talking to strangers, they actually work for all authors. So even if you're like, oh no, I'm gregarious, I love meeting new people, we hope you'll still get things out of these tips. They're really, they work for all authors. You don't have to feel shy or uncomfortable in order to make them work. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, before we start on the details, Ella, I'm hoping you can kind of walk us through your marketing philosophy that you help people with, because that really gives the context to the tips we're going to go through.
Yes. So marketing, I think marketing used to be before social media, but it still has this, people still view it this way as trying to convince somebody to buy something that they don't really want or need. So you're like, hey, we've got this, you kind of think about QVC, or something, where you're like,
or any infomercial, right?
Yeah, you're like, but I don't really need a Snuggie, but I want
for yourself. I do need a Snuggie.
No, but that's the kind of idea that
thought of before you saw the commercial.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
You've never had the moment where you're like, why does my blanket not come with me everywhere?
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're like, they're trying to convince you. So that's kind of the way marketing has been, but this is not. But nowadays it's changed. Nowadays, because of social media, it's more personable and it's more personal. People can spot someone who's trying to sell them from a million miles, and they can especially spot someone who's doing it inauthentically, like they're not being themselves. So. What you guys are trying to do, or you're in a different situation entirely, because you guys are selling books, and you're selling books to people who like to read. So you're not trying to convince them. You're not trying to be like, no, you do want to read my book, when they don't really want to. They actually do want to. And so there's nothing sleazy about it at all. What your marketing is just getting your book in front of the audience of people that want to buy it.
Right. So what's so cool about that is it means the way to market your book is to build relationships. And I get that still can feel intimidating for people who feel more shy. And so we are going to go into that. But when you build relationships, it means that you should just be talking to people. And you wouldn't go into a social situation in real life and just start screaming at people. And the same thing should be true on social media. So the very first thing is, and this should be like kind of relieving news to people who feel a little more introverted, is it's actually not effective to come into a space, an online space, and just start yelling, buy my book, right? So like, okay, that's not actually what I'm supposed to be doing. So if that feels uncomfortable to just walk into a social space and go, you guys, you buy my book, that's okay, because that's not effective. There was this cartoon years ago with, who's the actor who was on Saturday Night Live, and he was a film critic, and at one point he had written a book, and then there was this poster of him, an animatronic poster with the book, and they put it up everywhere, and it just said, buy my book, and people were smashing the posters. They were so annoying. And that's what a lot of people do, unfortunately, right, is just repeat on autopilot like an animatronic poster, buy my book. And if you've tried it and been disappointed, it's not effective. So what to do instead is to make relationships with people, and you can start small. So let's start at the very tiniest thing you can do. You can as you already are, if you're watching this, get online. And as you probably already are, get into groups, right? If you're watching this and all writers, welcome. Good job. You're already in a group. There are a ton of groups for writers and for readers and for people who love books. Not just on Facebook, but, if Goodreads is more your speed, there are places for people who love to read and write everywhere online. So the very first thing is find some of those find some of those groups that feel comfortable to you, get in there and start interacting. And if you were going to a new space physically, what might you do first? You might look around for one person and introduce yourself, and then just ask a question like, hey, what do you do? Right? If it feels more comfortable to you to let somebody else talk and you listen, get that started. Go through, just like what people are saying. Make encouraging comments. So easy to just get on a comment. Somebody says, oh, I'm, making great progress on my work in progress. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Smiley face, right? There are so many low-level, comfortable things you can do that just get you part of the conversation, which is fantastic. If you were at a real-life party and somebody made a comment and all you did was smile, like a smile emoji, you would be the weirdo. But online, that's totally fine. Online is actually a really, really wonderful place for people who feel intimidated by social interaction. So, and Carrie's saying, I'm shy and outspoken depending on what I write. Oh, that's a really good point. We're not always the same in all spaces. So, or, on all topics, but it's about finding that comfort level. So that's my number one tip, is find a group online and just practice interacting, liking, commenting. Now that's the kind of beginning level, and then you want to work things up. But what Ella was saying about people, you're not having to convince people that they want to read your book is certainly true. But then there's this question of, well, there are a lot of books out there, right? Even though I have people who want to read books, what do I do about the fact that there are a ton of books out there? So I've got some thoughts on this. I wonder, what are your thoughts, Ella, about people distinguishing themselves, not their books so much, but like distinguishing themselves in the online space, so that they stick out a little bit more? Because it's true, people want to read, right? But then there are a lot of books. Do you have any?
Yeah. I think a great way to stick out these days is to be generous first before asking. So, and it actually ends up being really easy. Like, how easy it is to compliment other people. Oh, you look great. And it's hard to compliment. It's hard to accept a compliment. It's so much easier. Well, and this is maybe more for women, but it's so much easier to be like, you look great. And
those shoes. What a nice hat.
Yeah. And so fortunately, there's been a gap between, I think, the way that we normally are and the way that we are on social media, but you can actually take that, hey, great job, to social media. And then because there isn't as much generosity on social media for whatever reason. So you can distinguish yourself by being that person who is super generous. Oops. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is it, two things. One, it makes it about you, the person, instead of about the book. So it means you're not constantly having to do the uncomfortable thing of like, guys, I have a book. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll get to talking about your book in a minute, but it lessens that discomfort of the selling feeling. But it also isn't, it's you doing something cool, but it's not like, hey, everybody look at me. Because really what you're doing is helping direct attention to somebody else. So again, I love this for people who feel uncomfortable being in the spotlight. Because you're saying, let me help you all see this really cool thing happening over there. It's not the attention.
Yeah. It's the awesome thing is that it might not be you guys, 'cause if you're shy, this might not be you, but most people love talking about themselves.
Right.
They're like, I've got all this great, this is what my book's about. They love talking about their book. They love talking about whatever their challenges are. They love talking about, what's going great for them, or the weather, or they love talking about themselves. And so if you can be the person who is listening and offering a space for them to talk about themselves, and a great way to do this is just to, is to comment on their stuff and ask more questions. Like, the best way to interact with people and and to get an interaction going is to ask questions like, oh, and how did that work out? Or
how'd you get the idea for that book? Or
yeah, what's going really great in your life right now? Or how can I help you is a good one. Or what's your biggest challenge? It just gets people talking. And the what's your biggest challenge is a great one, because then if their biggest challenge is, oh, I'm having a really hard time getting people to review my book, especially if it's somebody that you like in your genre or somebody that you know, you're like, hey, I can help with that.
Yeah, there's been so much of that going on in this group, and there was this really like lovely, heartwarming exchange between two of the people in our group the other day that it just made me smile so much, because it was a person finding a book that she was going to read that was going to make her thrilled. At the same time, an author was going to get a review from somebody who loves to read in her genre. And you're just like, oh, and he's like, that doesn't feel like marketing. That doesn't feel like, promoting the sense we normally think of. Okay, so you've talked about being generous, and one piece of that you just took us through, which is give a kind of love and attention to other people. But you've got some other cool ways that authors can be generous, not just to their peers, let's say, but kind of going above and beyond and reaching out to. And I would love it if you take it through those. And I know you've talked about them in other places, but this way it would be part of
what I really recommend is making a list of like the top 10 or 20 authors that you really admire or enjoy in your genre, and then following them on social media.
Wow, from the grocery store.
Yeah, following them on social media. Yeah, following them like stalkers.
Isn't it great? Now you can follow people and it's normal and it's complimentary instead of creepy.
I love it. You're like, I'm following you. Yeah. So, just liking all their pages, especially the ones where you spend your time, right? But really, and this is how you can do the marketing in 10 minutes a day, and not, and know exactly what to do. And so once you've found those people that you're like, I really want to connect with these authors because they're in my genre, they're successful, and I really love their work. You start following them. You start retweeting. Every time that they have a tweet, you retweet it or you comment back on it like, great job, I love this, or whatever.
Look at this cool resource from so-and-so, or what an inspiring quote from so-and-so.
Yep. Every day, if they're on Facebook, you share their posts. And if they have a book coming out, you share their thing about their book. You're like, you read it because you like it anyway. Then you review it, and then you come back to them and you're like, hey, I just left a review on your book. I loved it so much. Thank you so much. Yay. Because they're people too. They are just people who are logging into their social media. And so over time, they're going to notice when the same person is all over the place loving on them. Because you're not like asking them for anything at this point. You're just giving and interacting, and maybe, a little bit of, hey, how you doing? Or whatever, depending on how it works out. But yeah, you're not asking.
That's something you can adjust to your comfort level. If the author has a blog, don't forget about the blog too. A lot of blogs get left out of the love, right? Because people are just reading things when they're posted to Twitter or to Facebook or Instagram. So if somebody's got a blog, following that, and commenting directly on the blog, that can be a really impactful way to give love, because some blogs, even of very popular writers, can tend to be neglected because people are looking for comments other places. And then that also might be more about, it might feel more comfortable as a conversation. Like, I'm just joining the conversation, seeing, and in a blog comment, oh, I really liked the point about such and such, or that's interesting about this. So you can adjust it if it feels uncomfortable to really be talking directly to the person all of the time. Mix it up with just commenting on some things they've said instead of the direct interaction. But you can totally adjust it for your comfort level. Obviously, the more visible you are, and the more, as Ella put it, you're loving on them. I love that expression. In a clear way, the more opportunity there is to develop that relationship, but you can certainly start slow and just test out what feels comfortable and don't go too far. You don't have to push yourself. This is all modular. This is all adjustable. Super cool. But then, okay, so then there's some magic that can happen, because you made this comment, you kind of this cool foreshadow. You said you're not asking for them for anything yet, but you can, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, as you build relationships, it becomes a relationship. It's not just you commenting. You know, reaches a point where you can reach out and you're like, you can actually friend them, you know, not just follow their page, but you're like, hey, let me friend you. And they'll accept it because they know, they know you, they've seen you for a few weeks, you know, like sharing every single thing that they've done. Yeah. And so then you can friend them and actually build a friendship relationship. And it doesn't have to be like an intimate friendship, but it's the kind of thing where you can keep on, and it might feel a little bit, sometimes it can feel unnatural when you schedule stuff in, like, but if you make it a point to reach out to these people, it's not that different than making a point to reach out to your mom on Mother's Day. Yes, it's scheduled. Like, you're doing it on purpose, but it doesn't mean that you're any less genuine. It's because you really enjoy it. You're like, you want to make sure that person knows they're important to you.
And you know that the time will make a difference. If Mother's Day passes and your mom hasn't heard from you, or, you know, your anniversary passes and your spouse hasn't heard from you, there is some some sad feeling. So if, you know, 4 or 5 weeks pass and this person hasn't heard from you, there's, you know, we do this. We start to wonder, does that, you know, did I offend somebody? Is there, what happened there? We do start to ask those questions. So you just made a point, and I want to pick up on that, and it was about, it doesn't have to be an intimate friendship. And I want to use this to kind of launch sideways into a different topic. There was a really, really great question in the group yesterday about somebody who's blogging and saying, I'm, you know, trying to find my blogging voice, and I'm stuck with it. And from that, this topic came up about what is your blogging voice, and how do you talk to the people in your newsletter or the people out there. And this is something so powerful. You get to choose your voice. And it's not that, and James, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering your last name right now, but made this fantastic point, really eloquently stated, that it's not as if you were being fake. We are all speaking differently to different people in our lives. You talk differently to your best friend than you do to your boss.
Yep.
I mean, if your best friend is your boss, I guess that's the exception. But we're aware of this. We are different in different situations in our lives. And finding your voice as an author simply means recognizing the audience you're speaking to and getting into that headspace. So the more you decide what you want that to be, the more you can protect a feeling of putting your vulnerable self out there, right? You don't have to, as an author, share everything. This is not about people getting intimate or, you know, the complete backstage pass to your life. You can create your author persona, which is not about being fake. It's about deciding, who am I when I speak to my readers? What are the things that would delight them? What are the things I would like to share with them? And the more you practice using that voice, the more natural it becomes. So again, the reason I find this so powerful is for people who are more shy, it should feel like kind of a relief to go, I don't have to just be me, my complete whole self, with all of the things that I may want to keep private out there in the world. I'm going to be me, the author. And there are some, things you'll feel comfortable sharing and things you won't. And you can just create, who do I want to be as an author? And then the more you practice that in a blog, in a newsletter, in online spaces, on your author Facebook page, the easier it will come. And, you know, that could also be an opportunity to stand out. Authors who are just kind of characters, or who are dark and mysterious, or, you know, think about Lemony Snicket. Think about the character that Daniel Handler created as Lemony Snicket, right? There's so much draw and appeal. Like the Here's Some Unfortunate Events books are fantastic in my opinion, but then there's this further draw. There's this author, there's a picture, but you don't see his face, and who is, And that's an extreme degree, right? Because it's a pen name and it's a complete alter.
That's the same thing with my Scarlett Sinclair the pen name I created that I'm going to write this book about. My about page over there is like sex kitten about page, not sex kitten, but it's not like it's that part of me, the part of me that's like, now is that like, if you look at me now, are you like, oh yeah, sex kitten? No. No, I just woke up. But it's a persona.
And appropriate for your paranormal romance.
Yes.
Suspense romance, yeah. So that would be a really great place to be intentional, is to figure out who you want your author persona to be, and then use that in those other online spaces, because even though you're operating under, and I know some people have pen names, but even if you're operating under your own name, if you are in groups where you are being your author self, you can, put that into practice, put that into action, decide what you share. And it really is true, the more you practice speaking in that voice, the easier it will become. So of course, start a blog, start a newsletter.
Yeah.
There was a really great idea for something to do. In fact, Carrie, I think this is your idea. I won't get too many details away so people don't steal it from you. But what could I do in a newsletter if I'm doing, romance and suspense? And it could be like, romantic tips for couples. And that's so fun, and it's so in keeping with the genre. And it's not like, hey guys, this is my life, and listen to my the details of what I did today. It's still totally in keeping with the genre and the author voice, and also something of interest to your readers, and without having to give away too much about yourself. It could be like the 10 best places for a romantic dinner in whatever city. It's like, oh, okay. So not personal, so not oversharing. Carrie, I love that idea. So if you have some great tips that you use for reaching out to people, we would love it if you put them in the comments. For anybody who's feeling like, oh, I'm a little more confident, we'd love to hear that too. If you feel like you can use some of those ideas that we've just been chatting about. But great news for people who feel less comfortable. It's the online space is perfect for that. I guess I have one more tip, and this actually comes from Christian Gratin, who's a photographer. He's in our group. And he has this great advice, which is that if you feel a little bit less comfortable, make the party at your house. And this does not have to be literal, right? But make it at your space. If you feel like the social anxiety of showing up to somebody else's party, and it could be, a real life networking event, or it could be an online space, make it the way you want it by making it yourself. So that would mean making your Facebook author page, making your blog, and having other people show up to a space where you feel comfortable. If you feel more comfortable on your home turf, awesome, use that. And I really, really love that advice, because he also talks about then that will just make you naturally more generous, because you'll feel like the host and you feel like you want to take care of people. So you'll still be interacting, but you'll feel this comfort of being on your home turf. By the way, Christian has more amazing marketing tips than you can ever imagine. And if you want to check him out, he's at the Click Cartel. Click is in camera click. But yeah, he's somebody to follow if you're looking for networking and marketing tips, definitely. But yeah, we hope that you find some pieces here you can take away and use, and start getting more comfortable with just talking about who you are and what you do, because the bottom line is what Ellen was saying. People want to read books. They want to.
Yes. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap for now, and we hope we'll see you tonight at our open house. Yes. We're having a fun open house to answer questions and give tips and tell you about some of the neat stuff we're doing, and give away prizes. And
prizes.
We wanted to have a pinata, but the internet does have limitations.
Oh.
I think we have one, but it would only benefit.
Yeah.
One person.
Not even both of us.
I know, right?
Ah.
All right, guys. Well, we will catch you later. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And as always, please leave us comments about things that helped you or that you'd like us to cover. All right. Ta-ta for now.
Bye.
And broadcasting.
Broadcasting.